Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Legend Fiction Show. I'm Dominic, founder of Legend Fiction, and I'm joined today by Scott Huggins. Good to have you, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing really well, Dominic. Thank you very much.
Now, you're joining us from a classroom. What is it that you teach?
Well, I teach history and to freshmen and seniors, and today I'm actually teaching a professional fiction and professional genre fiction writing seminar. It's what we call a J term. It's a 2 week course. So I take the kids, the kids who sign up. It's an all volunteer course, and I just take them through some of the basics of professional short fiction writing. And we've had a great time. This is our last day, and the kids are on break right now. I said if anybody wanted to come in and quietly join us, they could. We'll see if that happens. It doesn't matter to me whether it does or not.
That is fantastic. I'm thoroughly jealous at a historian teaching fiction. I have that's got to, like, the number of stories you got to be able to tell. Well, you've actually got your own story. You've got a novel that I think you've recently published through Raconteur Press, and it's called Through a Spyglass Darkly. And I think as of today, this recording, it's coming out next week. Is that right?
It's coming out in 2 weeks from yesterday.
Okay, great. Well, tell us about your book. What's the blurb, and what inspired you?
Well, the book is about it. It really started with an idea that is going to be, I think, familiar to just about any writers, because we all like to write about whatever it is we happen to think is just amazingly cool. And I said to
No.
myself, what would happen if you gave Medusa a telescope? And and the horrifying implications of that yeah, led me to think of sort of a late Middle Ages, early Renaissance Gorgon assassin who could snipe people with her gaze amplified by in fact a spyglass. So hence Through a Spyglass Darkly. This is the story of Jahan Dark, a half Gorgon assassin who has made a fearsome reputation and finds that she does not really want to be an assassin anymore after one of her jobs goes very wrong. But as you can imagine, leaving the assassins is something that is generally easier said than done. So she has to come up with some way to leave and make sure the assassins do not decide to force her back. And her, the solution she hits upon really is, what about an arranged marriage with a king? Uh, do the assassins really want to go up against an entire kingdom? And when she marries King Michael and convinces him, obviously she needs a desperate king, because marrying a Gorgon is not something you do lightly. And she finds a king who is surprisingly a match for her, and then adventure ensues. So this is the story of Through a Spyglass Darkly, set in an alternate history Europe where all the creatures of myth and fairy tale really do exist to some
Amazing.
degree or
Yeah.
another.
Yeah. Amazing. I hate that phrase, an adventure ensues, because it's like, come on, please tell us more what happens. You throw the word assassin after anything and it just becomes epic. I would never have considered a Gorgon. Have you seen the Netflix series Furies? I think it's a French one.
No, I have not. I
No?
don't have Netflix, but boy,
Okay.
I'm intrigued already.
Yeah, it's an underworld of assassins, and they're all women, and they maintain a balance of power in Paris's underworld, and they're called Furies after the well, the Furies, because everybody's
Yes.
terrified of them, and they're all super warrior assassins. John Wick, kind of sort of for girls, um, or not, maybe not for girls, but with girls. Um, and so the balance, yeah. Anyhow, they maintain things by taking everybody out so that they can continue to be respected. Kind of reminds me of this. Um, What inspired this? Like, I mean, obviously history, mythology is a big, how did you put that together, and then how did you construct that into a novel?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I've learned over, as I've been teaching history, is that uh, it's definitely a trope, of course, in all sorts of Disney films. Like, oh, the marriage that my father has arranged for the alliance of the kingdom is it's so terrible. I must marry for love and feeling and romance and everything of that nature. And that's the trope we all hear. But the fact is that when you look at especially high level marriages for people, love was very much a secondary thing. I mean, it was basically, hey, you grow up expecting that your parents are going to find you marriage, and it's for the family's survival, and that's not necessarily a tragedy. That's just life, man. You deal with it. It's like telling kids, yeah, when you leave the house, you're going to have to find a career, and you're going to work at that career every day, whether you like it or not, because you got to deal
Say
with
not
it.
so. Yeah.
And of course we're going to try to find. It's not like people were horrible. It's like, we're going to try and find you a husband you hate. Like, no, you probably get some say. It's like, please, not this dude. But in the end, somebody's going to have to be picked. And so I kind of wanted to explore is like, what am I just got these ideas. Like, first of all, who would marry her and why? And I mean, she wants to do this. Why would anyone say yes? Well, the only reason you'd say yes is if you were in a whole lot of trouble. And King Michael is in a whole lot of trouble because he's got a usurper coming after him, a usurper with the backing of a major power. And they have and they have a horrible magical weapon that is ripping through his kingdom. He needs a horrible magical weapon to balance this out. Enter Jahan Dark the assassin. But he's not going to just let her I mean, they're both desperate, so they are meeting on more equal terms than it first appears. And neither of these people is somebody who's going to get themselves run over. So there's going to be some tension in here. And I realized the first, when I went to go make this into a novel, the first thing I realized was, good God, I can't just have her run roughshod over her husband. That's going to be a terrible story. So we've got to have a clash of wills and a story in which everyone plays a role.
So fun. Target audience and vibe of the book.
Let's see. I think the target audience, if you liked Lois McMaster Bujold's Kalian series,
I love that series.
especially I'd say the Penric stories. The relationship between Penric and his sort of female demon is a little bit similar, I would have to say, than to Jahan Dark and her husband. Also, I would say what it reminds me of mostly, and I was very happy, DJ Butler, who wrote the Witchy Eye series, he blurbed this book. He really liked this book. Wow. He recommended this book to a number of people, and in some ways he's another inspiration. So he did this whole alternate reality set about the time of revolutionary America, but I'm doing mine more in, say, the tail end of the 100 Years' War in Europe. And so, I mean, I've got more weird creatures than he had in his. Although I think he did a really, really deep dive into American history that's got me shaking my head in admiration.
Wow.
And I hope as more books in this series come out, I get to do something just as cool. But yeah, that's who I would say. If you like alternate history, if you like historical Easter eggs, if you like awesome sword and sorcery, rapier and creature duels, I think you're really going to like it.
That's awesome. Can you help me understand or paint a picture for me, like a day in the life of a Gorgon assassin? Because my imagination ends at all the pictures of the myths of Medusa.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, one of the things I had to do is, veils do mitigate her gaze. So she walks around
Interesting.
with veils a lot. I mean, she has to. Everybody else's safety depends on it. She, one of the major problems for her is how does she
Man,
not
she'd be like
kill people?
Cyclops from X-Men, wouldn't she? Like popping her glasses down if she was modern day.
Actually, yeah. I mean, that's yeah. Cyclops from X-Men is a pretty good comparison. There are other ways. Some of them come up with in the novel, so I'm not going to spoil them. As how do you, I had to go through a lot of things. Okay, so how do you fight this person? Is there any safety from this person? What do you do? I mean, someone's going to have to have thought, if she turns out to be a traitor, what do we do about her? And yes, people do have that thought because my characters are not morons, and they do think of things like this. But I mean, she tends to travel in disguise. One of the ideal ways for her to travel in disguise in 13 to 1400s Europe is as a nun. You put the habit over, you put a veil over your face, and nobody, there's a lot of nuns out there. There's hermitesses. They do this. So she is, if she's not in the palace being a queen, she's in disguise most of the time. She has to be.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
And as you can imagine, it's a pretty lonely life. And she's not maybe as affected as that as a human would be because she is half Gorgon, but she is also part human, so it does affect her somewhat.
Can she just turn people to stone or anything to stone?
Ooh, just people. And well, people. There are some people that are immune to her gaze. Like, for example,
Interesting.
trolls, she cannot affect. They are pretty much stone already. But I mean, animals, she doesn't turn animals to stone. That just, I actually thought about that, and then I just went, "Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous!" She's gonna be leaving trails of stone squirrels everywhere she goes. Stone butterflies dropping out of the air, and I'm sorry,
Gosh,
rule
the
of cool. I didn't want to
statuary.
deal with that.
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah,
statuary business on this would be insane.
yeah.
Oh gosh, I had another question and I forgot. Oh, so okay, apart from uh creating a fascinating main character like this, as a somebody who's in love with history and everything, what's one of the most unusual things that you perhaps researched or discovered as you were putting this novel together?
I'm sorry. You cut out for just a second here. What
Oh,
about
sorry,
putting
yes.
this novel together?
What was the most unusual thing that you researched or learned about as you were crafting this novel, apart from having a Gorgon main character?
Okay. Well, probably the biggest one was, um, for reasons that will become clear when one reads the novel. Uh, so in this story, Europe's history went a very different way. For one thing, William of Normandy failed in his attempt to take over England. So the Anglo Saxon kings are still on the throne in England. And one of the effects of that was that William of Normandy also lost, his sons did not hold on to the Duchy of Normandy. And that became subsumed in another kingdom that William the Conqueror conquered in our timeline, which was the independent kingdom of Brittany. Now, Brittany's still around in France, and they speak a different language. I mean, most people in Brittany do speak French, but one of the interesting things is that there's a whole language minority called Brège, and they speak a language as a Celtic language called Brejonic, and it's still spoken today in Brittany, France. So
Really?
the main language that our people speak is Brejonic, and they call their kingdom by its old Latin name, which is Armorica. Yeah. So what I had to research was what kind of creatures who are not human might you encounter in Armorica? What are the stories that the Brege tell? They're different than the German and the
Yeah.
French and the English stories of fairies and strange creatures. So I actually had to go and research and say, what is in the folklore of these people, and what parts of that folklore do I want to designate as real in this
In your
story?
world.
And it does come up, and that was fun as hell. That
That
really
seems
was
so
fun as hell.
deliciously niche. How did you find that out? I mean, I guess you would know where to go, but where did you go?
Oh, well, honestly, I did a lot of research online. And, I mean, this is one of the advantages about doing something that's this niche is you don't get nearly as many false leads. Oh, yeah, everybody knows this is true. And it turns out like,
Right.
no, nobody actually, that's not even true because people don't make up stories about it because it's not well known enough for people to make up BS about it. But honestly, to find out about this culture at all, I have to give a lot of credit to the great master Poul Anderson, and who is, to my mind, one of the most criminally underappreciated great masters of science fiction of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And one of my favorite book by him is called Orion Shall Rise. And he is the one who, in Orion Shall Rise, one of his heroes is from Armorica, and that's where I first heard the word Brajonic, and that has been just sort of fermenting in my head all this time, and I finally got to do something with it.
Nice.
So that's wonderful. In some sense, this is my Poul Anderson tribute book.
Oh, that's cool.
Although his story was like post-apocalyptic, and mine is alternate history. Aside from that, they have nothing to do with one another whatsoever.
Except for Bergonic. I want to ask you about your own origin story in a second. But first, can you tell us about, what is it, Orion Shall Rise? Can you tell us what is that
Yes.
book and why is it your favorite?
Okay, so it's partly because I'm a child of the Cold War, and the idea is in Orion Shall Rise, there's this nuclear war, and everybody got pretty much wiped out. The only country that even came through a little bit unscathed was New Zealand, just because they're so far away from everyone. Um, and and now you've got a bunch of successor states that are finally clawing themselves up out of absolute barbarism. So there's the Northwest Union, which is sort of American descended. There's New Zealand, which is New Zealand and Australia descended. There's what was it called? The Dominion, which is French European flavored. And these are sort of the big successor states that are now starting to ramp up into a serious war for resources and maybe a second nuclear war. And our heroes are trying to stop this. And in fact, there's one faction that is trying to put together a fleet of Orion spaceships, which they believe will initiate sort of a new era of prosperity for humanity. But then other people want to corrupt them and use them for weapons, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, that does sound fun. I think the last post-apocalyptic novel I read was, I think it was called The Postman.
Oh
Have
yeah,
you?
I've heard of that one. I haven't read it, but
Yeah.
I've heard good things.
Well, it's not, doesn't have so much drama and stuff in it, but it's more the idea that communication rehinges civilization. Funny you mentioned New Zealand because that's where I was born, so I guess I made it through
Oh
stuff
wow.
sort of safely. So your origin story, Scott. What's your how'd you get into being a historian? How long have you been an author? Why are you an author?
Well, let's see. Okay, I'll here. My very first story was published in Writers of the Future, Volume 15.
Cool.
So I was
Wow.
published in the very tail end of the 20th century. That's how long I've been a writer. 1999 was when I actually published something. It's been on and off. I kind of took a hiatus when my kids were born for about 5 years. Let's see. I'm originally from Kansas. I've lived all over. I've lived for a year in Germany. Lived for a year in Russia. I live in Wisconsin now. Lived in Michigan, and this is my ninth book that I've done. One more thing that Sam and I have in common is that we've both been involved in canon publishing. So this is my story for them, A Cold and Mortal Spring. It's the beginning of an epic fantasy. So I've got two books out in that, working on the third right now.
Wow.
This is more the epic, we're going to save the world from the creeping doom that is eating it. Yeah, go out and buy that one too. It's really awesome. David Weber liked it. I actually am so thrilled that I got David Weber to read this, and he loved it because David Weber is another influence. I mean, I was reading David Weber when I graduated high school, like Honor Harrington is the best. And there's nothing like having an idol tell you that you wrote something that was really awesome.
No
So,
kidding.
and I've been lucky enough to have that happen twice with authors I've really admired. So David Weber liked A Cold and Mortal Spring, and DJ Butler really liked Through a Spyglass Darkly.
That's beautiful. What awesome accolades. Are you a self-taught author, or did you go through a program, or what was that like?
I went through, I have a master's degree in creative writing, which was not useful for science fiction and fantasy whatsoever.
Really?
I did go to the Clarion Science Fiction Workshop where I got to meet Octavia Butler, Joan Vinge, Tim Powers. That was wonderful. It was a privilege to meet all three of those wonderful authors and to be taught by them. So I feel very blessed to have gone through that. And yes, I still remember a number of lessons they taught me. Other than that, I'm pretty self-taught.
Are you so apart from being a history teacher, by the way, favorite period of history? And I know that's an unfair
Ooh,
question.
that kind of depends on my mood. I'm
Mood.
interested in.
Okay.
I like World War One. I like the Roman Republic era, and I like the High Middle Ages. So
Got it.
all of those
Oh, you're
are
a historian. I have to ask you.
interesting.
So what's your Roman Empire?
What's my Roman Empire?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, ooh, uh, I don't know. I someday I kind of want to do an alternate Justinian, where I do the Byzantine Empire triumphant. I would love to do a story of that.
Wow. So
Although, of course, in this book, in Through a Spyglass Darkly, my Roman Empire is the Holy Roman Empire. So France. I did a mirror. So, in our history, France became a strong kingdom and the Holy Roman Empire became kind of a mess. So in Through a Spyglass Darkly, France is a mess and the Holy Roman Empire is the strong kingdom.
got it. Um, oh bother, I had a question now. It slipped my mind, but it was so apart from being a historian, you've got a number of books out. Um, what do you do as an author to let's say grow yourself as an author, or do you just have publishers that publish them, or do you create and do things online to build a brand, or is it more of a hobby for you?
Well, I mean, I would love to say that it was a profession, and I try to treat it as a profession, but I certainly not to the point of quitting my day job like so many others of my fellow authors. Although that would be wonderful if I could. But let's see. Part of the problem is I'm not good at marketing and I'm trying to be better at marketing. But yes, I have a Substack where I will talk about fiction. I've got a blog. I've got, I'm on Facebook. I'm on X. I link to people and I talk about their stuff. They talk about my stuff. It's really cool. as far as growing myself as an author, yes, I also go to conventions. I go to LibertyCon. The most reliable convention to find me at is I'm at LibertyCon in Chattanooga in June every year. So come on by and say hi. I'm sure I will be talking about Through a Spyglass Darkly there, and reading from it. So please do find me there. And I read some of my favorite authors right now. I'm sort of drooling in anticipation of Jim Butcher's latest release, which I love Jim Butcher's stuff, and I've met him a couple of times. He's a great guy. Someday I'm going to see if I can force him to read one of my books. I just hope so, but he's very busy.
Yeah. Wow. You mentioned you're already working on a sequel for your epic fantasy one. Um, do you have more scoped out into the future, or are you kind of a one story at a time kind of guy, and then you
No,
take a
I know.
break?
Well, it depends on the nature of the series. For example, Jahan Dark is not, at least not yet, a massive arc. So, for example, if you buy this first book in the series, there's not going to be a cliffhanger. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be another book. I really hope there is another book. I want to write another book with Jahan Dark, but it's more like Bujold's Miles Vorkosigan series, where you get one adventure at a time, and there's not necessarily a huge grand arc. But there's that. If, on the other hand, you read A Cold and Mortal Spring, the Wishkiller saga, that is a grand arc. So that one I have plotted out all the way, and I know how it's going to end. But it's the nature of the beast. What am I writing and why? And Wishkiller is my grand Lord of the Rings arc. Yes, at some point we're going to throw the ring in the fire, not literally. I'm not that big of a cut and paste artist, but at some point the story will end. Jahan Dark's stories, The Adventures of Jahan Dark, is a little bit more open-ended.
Amazing. Just want to welcome Gabby from the Legend Fiction community. She's the mentor. She runs our creative writing school. Hi, Gabby. Good to have you with us. I'm chatting with Scott Huggins, and he's actually got a novel I think you will love. It's called Through a Spyglass Darkly. And the main character, Jahan Dark, like you mentioned, is a Gorgon who is an assassin in 16th century, 17th century?
Let's see, probably more like 15th century.
15th century? Yeah. And so she can snipe people with a spyglass.
That is so cool.
I thought you liked that.
Thank you.
Gabby is our resident sort of changeling, fascinated with dark fantasy and fae and all that sort of thing. So,
well, in that case, I think you would like both Through a Spyglass Darkly and A Cold and Mortal Spring, because I get pretty dark with that one.
I love those titles, by the way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, Scott, here's what we're going to do. I've got how much time do you have? I think you said you're on break.
Yeah, I've got about 3 to 5 minutes at this point.
All right, well, let's wrap there. Normally, I've got a rapid fire series of questions, but I don't want to run over time. So why don't we wrap with where can people find you online? And again, when does your book come out?
Okay. Well, my book comes out on the 28th January, and it is going to be available on Amazon. It's from Raconture Press. And let's see, online, you can find me at Substack. My Substack is entitled A Drink from the Well. I'd love people to follow me. You can go see my patented happy dance on my page. I just posted that. And I'm on Facebook under my writing name, G. Scott Huggins. And I'm also on X. And I'm also on Instagram.
Got it. Stay busy. Well, I hope that your writing class wraps up well. It sounds like fun. I'd love to have you back and maybe recap some of the things that you walked them through, because
I would love to do that.
We're a writing community. And so we've got this weekly live stream that I'm trying to build up this habit of. And it would be so fun to have you back and to talk more with us, because most of us are a bunch of teens, and there's adults, and all over the world. And we hang out and just want to write together and do epic stuff. And your stories sound like they're right up there with our interests and the kind of people that we are.
Okay, well, that's great. I would absolutely be privileged to talk more about that. Yeah, my class is just going to submit their stories today, and that's because today is the last day of the class. And so, yeah, I could definitely come back and talk about that.
That would be fun. Well, thank you so much for jumping on, Scott. And folks, if you're seeing this conversation with Scott, have a look at the links in the description. You can head over to his website and grab a copy or pre-order his book. Or if you're catching it later, just buy a copy, support him. So you can keep
All
doing
right.
epic stuff.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so glad to have been here.